Hi everybody. It's been a couple of days since we read Out of the Biology of Kundalini. I am in the middle of like a home clearance. I'm getting ready to move, so I'm sorry the background is a little cray-cray. So we've been reading Jana Dixon's Biology of Kundalini. It's been a few days. We're in the equinox energy, so if you aren't familiar with that, this is a really fantastic day for the Earth to receive more Kundalini influx. It is like a dialing point for the Earth, for the planet, so each one of us also can receive more of an influx. And last time we were reading, we read the stress response on page 140, the stress response cycle that William Reich had observed of adaptation, alarm, exhaustion, recovery. Okay, so today we're going to start on page 141 and we're reading general adaptation syndrome and we're going to discuss that. Okay, so once again, if you enjoy these videos, please like, please subscribe, please share them. My main objective in sharing these videos is to enlighten or have the conversation that allows us to understand what's going on in these processes, and so that we can support one another better in awakening, and we can support, the whole planet is going through an awakening cycle right now, so it's important to understand this. So as I'm reading along, I'm assimilating this at the same time as you, though I have read this material before. It's heavy material, so speaking it out loud and speaking it out loud to you as someone participating and watching is helping to activate these elements in ourselves. So it begins with the hypothalamus, though only about the size of a pea, is the director of chemistry in the body. I feel like we read this last time. We did. So let's just review a minute. After having received input from the body, it transmits instructions to pituitary to release its various hormones. Yes, we did read that. So actually we're at the Kundalini gland, page 143. So let's go ahead and skip right to that. Yeah, she's talking about the prolactin levels rise with age, lowering levels of growth hormone and testosterone. So the receptors become less sensitive to feedback as one ages. Okay, so let's go on to Kundalini gland, page 143. She starts with the Muladhara chakra is at the base of the spine, and this is where Kundalini is supposed to lie, coiled, awaiting to arise. And we've talked about this in other videos. Several factors led the ancients to the symbolic idea of the coiled serpent. First, when Kundalini does rise, one of the initial pathways it takes seems to be around the spine between the two sympathetic trunks. Okay? The discharge of a double helix of energy can be felt rising up the spine. Some people, such as Gopi Krishna, and he has an account of his Kundalini, called this zigzag, for it appears the energy is flowing backward and forward up the ladder of the spine from ganglia to ganglia. She says she experienced this during a hypnagogic vision around the time of my 1988 awakening, her 1988 awakening. I imagine that energy is transmitted in this double helix fashion at the beginning of an awakening prior to the inner conjunction through the Sushumna nadi. Now that's the main nadi. I talk about this in a lot of other videos, or central channel of the spine. So although the traditions are focused on it, there's obviously no such thing as ejaculating up the spine, though a lot of traditions, Eastern traditions, talk about this, but it really is just a recirculation of energy mentally, okay? The nerve energy is perhaps turned to flow its power back through the nerves of the spine. Now that's a mental action. This is done by yogis through the inner kinesthetic sensing, directing the eye of the mind and breathing. So again, it's a mental thing. This redirection of nerve flow might be how the yogis prevent ejaculation while still having an orgasm, okay? It might feel as though there's an ejaculation up the spine because the Kundalini gland, or the coccygeal body, at the base of the coccyx is composed of smooth muscle and can pulsate like an ejaculation. Thus, to a man, it might appear he's ejaculating up the spine. Some of you may have never heard of this before, but some of you have heard of recirculating sexual energy so as to not lose semen, and that is supposed to like elongate one's life. And so that's what she's referring to here. Thus, to a man, it might appear like this. Okay, so I have noticed a sense of throbbing or pumping sensation at the coccyx that occurs at the start of an increase of Kundalini flow, and I've also noticed that. The coccygeal body is an irregular, oval-shaped gland between the rectal wall and the tip of the tailbone or coccyx. This is known in Tantra as the Kundalini gland. During active Kundalini, one can feel this pulsation at the sacrum. I suspect this rhythmic movement might be the Kundalini gland becoming active, she says. The coccygeal gland is fed by sympathetic or adrenergic from the first two ganglion and by parasympathetic cholinergic nerves, and by the median sacral artery and vein directly influencing the nervous system via chemical messages arising from the blood. It is several millimeters in diameter and is composed of epithelioid cells and smooth muscle cells. A study suggests its possible blood forming function and an immune modulatory activity by the regulation of the sympathetic nervous system through noradrenergic control. Removal of this gland creates nervous derangement. So there is something about this Kundalini gland that they're saying they have noticed that it is a modulator. Okay, so how perfect is that? That you want to modulate the positive and negative polarities. This is the base of the spine, the first chakra. That has to do with our sense of grounding and feeling safe and secure and at home. So there does need to be a regulatory function, and to remove the gland creates nervous derangement. I mean, how terrible to feel like completely ungrounded from the base of your nervous system permanently. Because it is the nexus of all the various body-mind systems, hormonal, blood, sympathetic, parasympathetic nerves, and immune systems, okay? The nexus of all these. The Kundalini gland is key to homeostasis of the body and to shifting metabolism over to the metamorphic state. So this gland is crucial in the transformative process. Further study could lead science to discover that the Kundalini awakening could be initiated or maintained by stimulation of the coccygeal body and the subsequent increase in the noradrenergic mechanisms of the central nervous system. If further studies confirm possible involvement of the coccygeal body in the regulation of sexuality, this may explain the immunosuppressive status related to sexual repression, as previously suggested by William Reich. So, yeah, if this gland is suppressed, if our sexual impulses are suppressed, that can actually suppress the immune system too, and that has been found in other places. Yoga has devised a wide variety of techniques, which I have a lot of videos for, to irritate and awaken this gland, including Mula Bandha, which is one of the main root lock. She says contracting perineum and lowering abdomen. Ashwini Mudra, which is the contraction. She says contracting the pubococcygeus muscle of the perineum as in Kegel exercises. Ashwini Mudra is really like the anal sphincter muscle. Okay, and then Tada Mudra, knocking the buttocks on the ground, sending rhythmic shock waves rippling up the spine. So Tada Mudra is actually done by getting into a position like this and bouncing like one against the ground like that. You're just like hitting the pelvic floor. I mean, I'm on a bed, but on the floor generally. and rolling on a cotton ball placed under the tip of the tailbone. This turns out to be a pretty hard cotton ball. A study of anatomy defies the traditional idea of ejaculation of sexual juices up the spine. However, the nitric oxide and other neurotransmitters that are used in sex would be directly involved in an interconjunction event. In fact, the sex chemistry involved in an interconjunction is many times greater than that which facilitates sex itself. Although the entire body is flooded with sex and growth hormones during peak, in which spinal interconjunctions occur, and this serves to rev up the metabolism in which the energy can build to these intense phases and lock situations, I still cannot see, she says, how sexual juices can enter into the cerebral spinal fluid. So again, she's just saying it's not literal that you're ejaculating up the spine, which I never believed that was what was going on, but I guess some people think that. Instead, she says, I see the spinal fluid becoming supercharged with glutamate, Ca2+, and other ions, along with nitric oxide, driving the maximum nerve activity. So you do feel like an orgasmic sensation moving up the spine, men, if you do the recirculating exercises. So it may feel that way. She says the fluid's thus supercharged and doesn't necessarily shoot up the spine, even though it feels like the force of 10,000 orgasms blasting directly up the spine. However, the liquid probably does flow a little faster during interconjunction, even due to the increased electromagnetic field and increased ciliary movement of the tissue that moves cerebral spinal fluid along, which is excited by the extra nutrition and ions of fluid and nerve energy at the time. Hence, the intense upward pressure of an interconjunction is not caused by any fast-moving ejaculate liquid within the spine, so much as by increased energy in the nerves. For the central cerebral spinal fluid, the cerebral spinal fluid is moved via hydrostatic pressure, and cili is reputed to take 24 hours for a full cycle and is completely changed every 6 to 7 hours. Thus, I see the amrita ejaculation of fluid down the back of the throat, more of a brain ejaculation. So that's really when your pineal gland is secreting amrit, rather than fluid coming from the sex organs. So if you do taste the sweet nectar, she's calling it a brain ejaculation. Why not? That's the pineal gland, okay? And then the final portion of this section, before we go into hormones specifically, is the carotid glands. During the start of a 4-year period of intense transformation, Jiddu Krishnamurti noticed a lump in the middle of the nape of his neck that seemed to be painfully contracted muscle about the size of a marble. During a 3-day period of radical metamorphic trance, the pain literally threw him about the room for several hours each night, after which he would recover only to have it happen again at 6 p.m. the next night. Jiddu's countryman, U.G. Krishnamurti, talks about a cobra-like effect of the neck puffing out during acute prana flow, hence the ancient Egyptian symbol. The carotid glands are a reddish-brown oval body at the top of the neck just below the ears. Okay, it's similar in structure to the Kundalini gland that we just talked about. It is known that oxygen and carbon dioxide concentrations represent the main stimulus for the carotid body. Carbon monoxide is a gaseous neurotransmitter, also appears to be involved in the regulation of chemosensors of carotid body, which are regulated by molecular oxygen and inhibited by carbon monoxide. The coccygeal and carotid gland seems to act as a neutralizer of systemic poisons. Okay, that's the important line right there, is these glands is part of a system with the Kundalini gland, and as they are regulating these glands all help to neutralize poison in the body, okay? And that's part of what a yogi, you may have heard, them get to a state where they can swallow poison. That would be an extremely awakened, carotid system. The carotid gland produces dopamine, and this is significant to understanding their function. Then she quotes from Krishnamurti in The Mystic of Enlightenment, "I do not want to be an exhibitionist, but you are doctors. There is something to the symbolism they have in India, the cobra. Yesterday was the new moon. The body is affected by everything that is happening around you. It is not separate from what is happening around you. Whatever is happening there is also happening here. There is only the physical response. This is affection. You can't prevent this for the simple reason that the armor that you have built around yourself is destroyed in the alchemical fire. So it is very vulnerable to everything that is happening there. With the phases of the moon, full moon, half moon, quarter moon, those swellings here take the shape of a cobra. Maybe the reason why some people have created all these images, Shiva and all those kinds of things, but why should it take the shape of a cobra? I have asked many doctors why this swelling is here, but nobody could give me a satisfactory answer. I don't know if there are any glands or anything here." He's talking about where they finally have talked about the carotid glands. So we will go on in the next segment to talk about hormones like testosterone, like estrogen, like the luteinizing hormone, oxytocin, cortisol. That's the next segment. So I love this because we're talking about balancing the hormones in the body, balancing and awakening. And here we are in the equinox period. My hair is just going all over the place right now. So I'm excited. We're going to get into this the next few days. So thanks for jumping back on with me. Excuse my absence for a few days. I am getting ready to move. So we are in a big hustle bustle. I'll have to do another video about that. But since it is the equinox time, if you would like a personal reading, to me, this is one of the best times of the year, the solstices and equinoxes, to get a personalized reading for yourself. And I will do them at different times of the year, but this is the time that I feel like the most information is available at these 4 points of the year. So if you would like to do that, send me an email, stasiabliss@gmail.com, or you can send me a message via my Instagram, that is Bliss in the House, or on my Facebook page, Stasia Bliss. Okay, thank you so much for joining me, and we'll see you back here again soon.